Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world with the most profound lessons from Burning Man, psychedelics, relationships, entrepreneurship, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we talk about how to stay sparked in this idea of personal growth, evolution, making resolutions, and how to improve ourselves over the coming year, and whether that's even how necessary that is as well.
We also get to touch on some wonderfully fascinating topics on identity-based goals, becoming new versions of ourselves, as well as staying content with who we already are.
We talked about accountability, we talked about habits and stacking habits, and shared a few stories from our lives. We really hope you enjoy the episode. Ooh, thank you, Dub Sutra, for that beautiful intro music. Welcome to Stay Sparked. I'm Halcyon, and I am joined here by Betsy and JANUS. Welcome, Betsy. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, good morning. I am grateful for my dear friends who I got to exchange some wonderful gifts with this weekend. We got to adorn each other with things that we already owned, which felt really good, especially coming off our last podcast about gift giving. So I'm wearing a shirt that one of my best friends gave me from her closet, and now it's just like sparking new life for me. So really grateful for re-gifting, I guess you could call it.
Love that. Thank you. And JANUS, welcome. What are you grateful for today?
Hello, thanks. I am grateful for feeling a lot of gratitude today and for the last couple of days for my partner. Actually, my partner Shannon has just been in kind of showing up for me in some really lovely ways, and it's been really nice. Like just kind of waking up and feeling juiced up from my relationship has been not, there's levels of juice, I guess you'd say, and the levels have been pretty high last few days, and that's been nice, waking up into that space. Just kind of start my days has been good. It gets me it starts my days fired up. So that's been good. I'm grateful for that. And
with a high level of juice.
And for her. high levels of juice from my relationship. So so that's been good.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the meltdown of Southwest Airlines because it made my bioson's 2-day visit into an 8-day visit, and he spent Christmas with my family and got to call my mom and dad grandma and grandpa, and was actually riding my dad around like a horsey. And so it was just such a gift to have a Christmas morning with a 3.5-year-old and my family to just get to really connect with this little boy that's so important to me. So it was a priceless, precious thing that couldn't have happened without thousands of stranded travelers. So sorry, everyone, but the universe did that for me, and you had to kind of be a casualty of it.
I'd be interested to see. I haven't seen it yet. I'd be interested to see like a story of like the positive things that came out of that complete debacle and disaster. Because I know they exist like that. I'm sure there's a lot of stories like that.
Here's one.
I'd like to hear those. Yeah.
The fly the friendly silver lining skies, something
there
like
that.
There you go. Well, we are now at the beginning of a year, the ending of a year is a time when people are talking about new beginnings, but it is always time to be thinking about and talking about new beginnings. So we hope that whenever you're listening to this, you are in the mindset of, what does that mean for me, and how do we do that? And I'm really eager to have this conversation and hear what you guys are thinking about this topic. Betsy, do you have a specific plan to, now I'm going to do something new with your life, are you in a continual state, or is there like markers that you do it?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I personally feel like I'm in a continuous state of transformation. Metamorphosis. I resonate really deeply with the butterfly is one of my totems, and just the symbology of what the butterfly goes through in each of its different stages and cycles of life. And I personally feel myself continuously evolving in who I am and what my offerings are. For anyone that knows me, that's listening, you've seen me go through many different stages of my professional offerings, from doing healing work and massage to having a clothing line for many years to, creating a journal and doing women's empowerment work. And what I've discovered is that the more that I continue to listen to what's being called forth in each moment, then I just follow that inspiration and watch the newness emerge. And I think it's a really fun process to get to be in, to be curious about who I'm becoming,
Mm.
right? And I love this theme too, because it's becoming new. We're continuously becoming who we are each day. We don't have to stay stagnant in who we used to be. We get to watch the unfolding.
I so love the way you said that, and that idea of, at least what I'm hearing in this idea of transformation is it's not like this upward growth ladder, it's shifting, changing. And it reminds me of, like, one of my idols is, uh, Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie, and just the reinvention. And it's like, oh, you're allowed to do vastly different things, to be vastly different people. And that idea of becoming as an option, I think, is kind of revolutionary.
That idea has actually been around for quite some time. It's the first time I really heard about this idea was from a reading of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where it referred to, like, we have to let go of the idea that we are human beings and that we are humans becoming, that we are always in this state of, evolution and growth and decline and decay. Like, these things are always happening, and that every morning is another opportunity. They were not attached to a calendar for this sort of thing. And I think that's something that we have, as a Western society, have gotten into, and it would kind of behoove us to consider another way, to not so be attached to so much to, okay, this is the date on the calendar, so now this means I have to start doing this or whatever. It's like, no, we can do this any day. Every morning is another opportunity. Every sunrise is another opportunity to begin again, to begin anew, and to be like, okay, so, and it's not this, like, upward, like you say, like this upward state of evolution. It is just a point on the path. So it's not that we have to constantly be improving or constantly be growing. It's, that's kind of a fringe benefit of the evolution, but we can, as long as we feel like we are living into our truth, living into what's feeling authentic to us in this moment today. I think that's the idea, and that's the point.
I wrote down
Yep.
human becoming. That's awesome. Yes.
Yes.
Human becomings. We're human becomings.
Mhm.
Yes, it's like the cyclical nature too. I just want to just echo that, honoring the cycles that we each go through at different
Mhm.
times, and coming back to the metaphor of the butterfly, right? There's not one stage that is better than the other. To be in full expression with the wings is beautiful, but it's also really beautiful to be in the chrysalis, in the goo, in the breaking down process. And, there's just so many different levels of our own personal transformations, and to honor those parts, and looking at nature, and, winter time being a time of going inward and death, and things are more dormant. And that's okay. That's when we go through these kinds of things, then we can really allow that sort of alchemical process of our transformation to occur. And when we can honor that and trust that there's something new going to be emerging in the spring, metaphorically within ourselves as well, whether that's our projects, our relationships, our work, our spiritual beliefs, whatever it is, there's this really beautiful transformation that's occurring in each of the stages.
This is not at all where I thought this was going to go, and I absolutely love this. Because, I mean, so, like, gardening was one of the first spiritual practices that I ever had, because I got to recognize the beauty of all the cycles. Like, there are flowers, like bloom, bulbs if it blooms and then you cut off the flower before you let it die, it won't bloom again. It has to grow, it has to die, like, and so there's all these parts of the natural world. It's not like the bloom is good and the dormant is bad. It's all. And I think that we are entering or a time when personal growth is really embracing that. I think there was a time when leaders and teachers were not being quite so vocal about their struggles. And I think that we are now very comfortable as a culture talking about our therapy and our inner work and our trauma work, because the act of becoming is the act of struggle, difficulty, as well as growth. It's all part of the process of becoming more, as you were saying, Janus, your truth. And you can't get to the truth without some decay.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to, our stories that we have, written for ourselves need to kind of break down so that, I'm going to be I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be a master of industry, or I'm going to be a best-selling author or whatever. And sometimes it's like, wow, I'm actually a homebody who has a nice little garden and that's who I am. That's what I'm going to do, or at least for now. And kind of accepting that, and realizing that our dreams that we have for ourselves 7 or 10 years ago, like, and we like later, like we work to achieve these dreams, and like, well, you're not that person anymore. So that's why I feel a lot of people who achieve their dreams, and they find that doesn't bring them like the happiness that they thought it would. It's like, well, because you're not that person anymore. Those dreams were valid, but you have just grown, you have changed, unbeknownst to yourself, like unexpectedly. And so it's important to kind of be in this constant state of becoming, but and kind of self-checking, reassessing, like, okay, so where am I, who am I, and what feels good to me now in this moment or in this season. And pay attention to that, and that's put your efforts towards that if you're going to effort at all.
Definitely. I'd love to echo that as well. And just, considering the theme of this podcast, staying inspired. How do we stay inspired to grow? And how do we stay inspired to create ourselves new? Especially when there is this, these dreams or these goals that we have that might not actually get accomplished. How many people set New Year's intentions or resolutions, and then maybe they don't follow through, or maybe it takes some time, right? And like we can find ourselves in a downward spiral of shame or frustration or self criticism about not doing the things, right? And so how do we stay inspired to find the pathway to the upward spiral of growth and following our joy, and not getting stuck in the like, oh, I didn't do that, so I'm not going to set any more goals, or like, oh, my dreams don't really matter because I never accomplish anything anyways. But really, like, how can we see the perspective that actually, well, maybe that goal I set for myself was maybe a little too lofty, or maybe that dream I had was actually, it wasn't aligned for who I am and who I'm becoming, right? And then looking to other sources, whether that is conversations with friends or reading different books or just following other pathways to get that inspiration to flow towards something that is more aligned.
And real quick, just to say, just to kind of add what Betsy is saying. Yeah, I think it's I don't know if that was our initial intentions for today, but yeah, I would like to dive into how we do that. How do so because this is the time of year, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be a better version of me, or I'm gonna achieve some goals. How do we do that? Like, what's a good way? What are best practices towards getting ourselves to a place that we want to get to, that so many people like to do this time of year?
I want to touch on this idea of resolutions versus goals, because I mean, I think that there's, you mentioned, Betsy, about there's a inherent possibility of failure when you set a certain place that I'm got to get there, and I think that there are times when making a commitment that you there is no wavering. I will do this, that there's a really power to that. There's not an option. I will do, this is happening. But I also think that I personally find resolutions to be filled with so much anxiety about the possibility that I'm going to fail in the future that it's not a healthy thing. I don't do resolutions. So normally I prefer the idea of goals, because that's just your head. But someone told me recently they prefer aim. So a direction, and I think that gives you a lot of room, because then you are constantly making a choice, a decision, if you are heading in that direction. And you can say, today I am not heading in the direction of my health, but tomorrow you didn't fail. You get to make the decision again tomorrow. You just get to continually make this decision and head in a direction. I think that is a really, for me, a healthy way to make that upward spirally progress without this kind of nagging darkness of, yeah, but what if you fail? What if you fail? Yeah. So you were mentioning how to do it. Do you have something in your mind of a way to get there?
For me,
Yeah.
I really actually like your idea or your method, as opposed to setting a goal. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to get to this. Is almost like, okay, so this year, this is what I'm going to do. Instead of saying, okay, like I want to lose 10 pounds, I'm going to do the things that might get me, or that should get me to losing 10 pounds. I'm going to walk more. I'm going to hike more. And without saying I'm going to hike 3 days a week, I'm going to hike more. I'm going to spend more time hiking. You can leave it, there's a middle ground between the specific and the general that we can get to, because when we're specific, it's super easy to miss that mark. And then it's a self-perpetuating kind of thing. It's like, I miss one, then I miss two, and what am I even doing? I'm not even going to try anymore. It's like, no. I'm just going to hike more. So if that's like one day a month, then that's fine. But this is also a self-perpetuating kind of thing, that it kind of feeds itself, like, because if it feels good, you do it. You end up wanting to do it more. And the more often I hike, the more I want to do that. The more I do something and I kind of feel good about it and I kind of see results, I'm going to be inspired to do that a little bit more. So whether that's exercise, or whether that's showing up for children, or showing up for my friends or family, where I'm gonna show up for my mom more. I'm gonna call my mom more. I'm not gonna call my mom once a week or once a month. I'm just gonna call her more often. And then you might find yourself having conversations once a week eventually. That seems like that works. That works for me, and I think that might work better for a lot of us as well. Just finding some place between the specific and the general to get to. Specific is a little tricky.
For me, I love this so much, because I practice some really cool things from a book I love called Atomic Habits.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the practice is called habit stacking. So if you haven't read Atomic Habits, it's an amazing book. It has all kinds of wonderful things in there. And this practice of habit stacking is basically, you have an existing habit that you already do, and you stack on another habit that you're trying to build. So for example, I already have a habit of drinking water in the morning, and I wanted to start drinking lemon water in the morning. And so what I started to do is I started to put a lemon next to my water bottle. And so that way I'm like remembering to do it. And now it's habitual. It's already something in there. I've been doing it for some time. And then even further, I do this in my groups for affirmation work, where when we want to start implementing using positive thinking into our lives, but we're not used to it, then we start stacking the practice of affirmations on different things that we're already doing. So for example, one woman in the group, she started doing her affirmation every time she makes her bed. And she put a little sticky note next to her bed, so that way every morning when she's making her bed, she's repeating that affirmation and she's getting it in there. Right. So, or hiking, if hiking is already a habit and you want to start having more gratitude in your life, then you set that intention to stack gratitude onto your existing habit of hiking. And then the other piece from Atomic Habits that I really love that's relevant here is the difference between an outcome-based goal versus an identity-based goal, which I just love this so much because oftentimes we put this tangible outcome of like, I want to, have a new car by the end of the year. Great, wonderful goal, right? You start saving the money to get your new car. That's awesome. And you can also set a goal to see yourself as a new version of yourself, right? So Janus, you talked about losing weight, right? And the shift from becoming, you go from losing weight to becoming lighter, right? So my identity-based goal around that is to be lighter. I move lighter through the world. I'm like see myself as a lighter version of myself, right? Or they use the example in the book, becoming a non-smoker, having the identity-based goal of seeing yourself as a non-smoker versus focusing on not quitting smoking, right? And seeing who are we becoming, right? Are you seeing yourself, your identity-based goal is becoming a CEO or a speaker or a leader or whatever it is. And I love that concept so much. So if you guys haven't read Atomic Habits, it's a really great book to start the year
That's
and
awesome.
all year.
I have a great tool that I wanted to share that is totally in line with that. It is something that a number of people that I've studied with teach. Kyle Cease does this, and Jacob Glass does this, or versions of it, where you time travel to the future a year from now, and then you talk about the year that you've had in the feeling of that space. So rather than saying, I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to buy that new car and I'm going to get a new job, I do it by writing a letter to my brother or to somebody. I go, Jim, oh my God, I've had the most incredible year. I got that job I wanted. And you don't even have to know what it is. You can just say, it's that perfect job that totally does all the things that I really love about myself. And my coworkers think I'm great. And that book idea that I had, I finally got a first draft for it. And for me, like any of the anxiety about, am I really going to do that? I don't want to commit to that. I can just like feel that place of this kind of improv-y energy of I'm in the space of all this things working for me, and then kind of let the year take me there.
Yes, I love that. I actually did that last year with a girlfriend who lives out of state as a way to stay committed and accountable to this practice that you're speaking to, Halcyon. And we call it future forward gratitude. And so each day for 30 days, we committed to sharing a 1 to 2 minute voice memo with each other on WhatsApp, sharing our gratitude for the present moment and sharing our gratitude for what's to come, but in the present tense. So yes, I'm so grateful
Love it.
for all my amazing clients. I'm so grateful for how successful the event I put on was. It feels so good. And then just let it go.
There's so much to that deeper idea that you can experience feelings from things that are not happening. Like you can bring a person into your thoughts, you can bring a success into your thoughts, and you can have the feelings of those people and that event, and then I think it's a lot less scary to move towards it when you've already kind of spent some time there, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. And these things that we're talking about are practices, and they might feel a little like weird or not quite right at first. Like, oh, I'm going to, cast myself into the future, or write a letter to myself, or I'm going to check in with my friends or such. It's important to kind of get past the idea. Like, we're not talking about wish casting. We're not, these are ideas that require action. And the great thing is it's not a lot of action. It's not like you got to come up with this 10-point plan. Have an idea, however you want to come about like this idea of, becoming into, creating this life that you're, wanting to experience for yourself. These do require, some action, a plan of action. Like, okay, there is something I'm going to be doing. What feels good to do? What feels right? What feels appropriate? What feels manageable? To really give some thought to that and be like, okay, so there's, calling my friend, leaving my friend a 2-minute, voice message every day. that's a good plan of action. That is a doable thing. Maybe that's 1 minute, maybe that's 5 minutes, or maybe it's every other, whatever. It's important to kind of realize what you've got the bandwidth for, and then implement a plan of action. And because it's easy, like my own experience with, for example, like vision boarding, which is a powerful practice. But I found myself in the midst of creating a vision board for what I wanted. I'm like, I just had the idea while I was doing it. I'm like, maybe I could spend less time visioning and actually take an action plan, make a phone call to see if I can make this happen. And within a couple of days, I had made this thing happen that I was spending a lot of time like putting together vision boards and looking for photos and cutting them out and putting them on them. And I just kind of stopped for a second. I'm like, actually, maybe I could spend some time trying to make this happen. And in a couple of days, it was happening. So I'm like, okay, so there's vision boarding is powerful, and action is probably is just as powerful as well towards getting toward it. Goes together for sure. Yeah. So it's important not to lose sight of that.
Yeah, you can't just like put a picture of a shiny brand new car on your wall and sit it around and stare at it all day long. It's like, of course, you got to put some energy and effort into going to the dealership and, doing the research and taking the action. And then, I just want to tack onto that, the power of accountability is a really valuable thing that we can give and do for ourselves. I feel like I've learned so much, especially this last year with my girlfriend, who we committed to 30 days every day. We missed a couple of days, but that was okay. We just picked back up. And then also I do this with my sister, who also lives out of state, as a way to stay connected. We have weekly Zoom calls, and it's a beautiful way that we can stay up to date on what each other are up to, but we also talk about our wins and our the things that we've accomplished, and then setting into motion the other things that we want to do. And it's a great way to stay on track, stay up to date with what both of our aspirations are. And it's a really just a beautiful place of accountability. And we type it all out, and we have like, oh yes, this is what I want to be doing. And then we can check in around, how's that going? Do you still want to set up an art station or whatever it is? And it's like, actually, no, I don't think I want to do that. I decided I'm going to focus on something else, and that's okay. And checking in about it, having that weekly accountability is so powerful. So whether that's with a friend or your sibling, or, paying a coach to do that, I think it's a really beautiful way to keep growing and keep evolving and staying committed to these wonderful things that we want to do and who we want to become.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that it's good to know that there's a lot of things. Well, we're all wired a little bit different, and we all have different tendencies. There's a great book by Gretchen Rubin called The Four Tendencies, and like some people are able to say, I'm going to do this, and their accountability to themselves is all they need. And there are some people like, I'm an obliger, so I will, if I say I'm going to do something to you, I will do whatever I can to make sure that I don't let you down. So and so knowing your kind of pain points is helpful, but it's also good to know that like most of us have tendencies that will make the argument in our head of like, well, I don't need to get up early to do that today because maybe but if you have an accountability, then you can't let your own brain weave the excuse for you. And along those lines, another thing that I learned about habits, or if you want to do something like, don't say I'm going to walk 4 days a week. Say you're going to do it every day, because every day you don't have to wake up in the morning and you don't have the opportunity to go, today's not one of the days that I'm going to walk. Because no, I do it every day. And then you don't let your brain weave that excuse for you. And that's been super helpful for me every day.
So powerful.
Yeah, I see the wisdom in that. And I think that also might go a little counter to like, setting ourselves up for like, it is that like, that would work for me. I'm wondering if there's people that might feel a little daunted by that everyday kind of commitment, everyday practice. So again, all these these tips and ideas are like not one size fits all. So it's important to, like, there's some people that are going to hear this and be like, oh yeah, that everyday thing is going to be I can do that. There's other people like, oh, every day, oh my gosh, that's a lot. So for anybody who's listening, feel free to adapt these ideas, come up with your own ideas, and adjust it, tailor it for yourself. See how you can make it work for yourself.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yes, it's so true. We're each our own unique person, so we find ways that work for each of us. And I'll also just echo what you shared, Halcyon, around being an obliger.
Mm.
I also feel a lot of power when I speak a intention to someone out loud. It's like, okay, well, I shared it out loud, and now it's like, oh, okay, I got to do that. And so I have a little story about that. So a few years ago, I had this inspiration to create a journal, and it was like kind of daunting and kind of scary. It felt like a big stretch for me, but I felt it really strongly. And so what I did is on my birthday, I called together a group of 8 of my closest friends and had a little birthday circle, and I shared with them my intention, and I asked them to hold me accountable throughout the year to do this. And they were such a yes, and they committed to having email thread with me, checking in about once a month or so, saying, hey, how's the journal coming? And it was such a gift, because I could have easily been too overwhelmed by this big project I was taking on and be like, no, I'm just going to stay comfortable and doing the thing I know how to do. But because I told my confidants that I was doing this, and I had to keep showing up, because I didn't want to respond to that email, say, oh, I haven't done anything. And
Yeah.
it worked, because then I ended up creating it and launching it, and now it's a huge part of my life and my offering. And I feel like having that circle really helped me a lot. So that sense of like sharing and obligation.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing, because what you're recognizing what is going to cause you pain and suffering, which is letting your friends down, and you're kind of using that to keep you on track. I've heard some interesting ways of doing it. Like Kyle Cease had a thing where he said, like, agree that if you don't follow through on this meditation practice, you will send a $500 check to Donald Trump or something, so that yeah, you have to do the thing that you said you're going to do, because otherwise you've agreed to do something that would just make you feel terrible. I apologize if anyone, I didn't mean to assume that if you're listening to this show that you would not want to send money to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think that is a real important point to touch on, is to like the idea of telling people to speak it out loud, because it's kind of an interesting fact around the world that nothing is created without it being spoken. Like, there is no, relationships don't just happen. Like, material things don't just happen. Like, for this tapestry behind me, somebody had to say, I'm going to make this tapestry, or we are going to make this tapestry, or we are going to recreate a company that makes tapestries. I'm going to get a new car. We are going to be in relationship. We are going to move into a new house, or we're moving to, Denver or whatever. Nothing happens in the realm of our mind, or even in the realm of writing down. Like, these things need to be uttered. Like, the sound aspect of creation is a real thing, and it's important too. So whatever our goals are, like Betsy was saying, like, say it out loud, like, put it out there, into the world, into reality. And we might find ourselves surprised by how quickly things come to fruition. There's a lot of I think we all have an example in our lives. Like, we had an idea of something we wanted to do, but we never really said it. And we might have even written it down, but we never put it out there. And a lot of times it just kind of fizzles out, because there's not, you have to put in my experience, you have to put a specific kind of energy into things, and that's really simply done just by speaking it into existence. Even if that's not the goal, I'm not going to speak this into existence, it's going to happen. It's like, well, that is a step in the process. Is really just putting it out there, and I'm constantly not surprised anymore, but I was for a while like, wow, just you speak these things and then it comes to fruition. You know, the idea that
Mm,
sound creates matter has a lot of different permutations, and it's a big one. So that's an important goal. That's an important step in the
yes.
process.
Yes, so true. Thank you for that, Janus. Yeah, and community really supports that,
Mhm.
right? I know over the years, sharing different things with you guys, even, and when you've checked in with me, how's that thing that you're working on going? And when I do that with my friends as well, hey, remember a couple years ago you were talking about, making this thing. How's that going? And it's really powerful because there's been times where I've like held these things that I've said I was going to do and then like didn't do it. And then somebody comes back around and is like, hey, how is that thing? And then being able to verbally say, you know what, I actually chose not to do that. I kind of like put that to rest. It was a really fun idea, but I kind of let it go. Or that sort of fizzled. Like there's something in my nervous system that just goes, ah,
Mhm.
like that feels good to just say that out loud rather than having this like internal kind of like tension around not doing the thing or like personal shame or whatever it is. It's like, oh, actually, no, it's okay. Or, right, even just checking in with somebody also can spark the ignition of that project, right? It's like, oh, hey, how's that book that you said you were wanting to write? It's like, actually, you know what? I feel like I want to start putting some more energy into that.
I, I think community is so huge. And I think the other part is that, and about becoming new, a part of it is what we're talking about right now about actions and doing and goals and going for your goals. But I think there is another part of it that is uh, more about allowing and more about removing the things that are not your truth. And so it's less about making things happen in the world and more about questioning the things that your values, your goals, even and saying, is this really who I am, or is this something that I learned, from a John Hughes movie when I was a kid, and I've thought that this is what I wanted, and actually I don't, and so there's a lot of my becoming anew has been a process of just realizing that something I thought was me wasn't me, and then just allowing that to come, and then the kind of what do I do from there? It doesn't even take as much motivation because it feels like, well, that's just what I feel like doing now.
Mm.
Yes. And that's what Burning Man is really great for. Here we
Yeah.
are, some seasoned burners, and Burning Man provides a beautiful playground to try on new identities, new characters, new expressions of ourself, right? That week long in the desert or longer for some, to be able to express in a whole new way and discover this aspect. Costumes and clothing can really help that, to be able to, yeah, discover who I am. And one of the other ways that I love getting to do that is through clothing exchanges. I love, eco fashion, where we're getting to recycle things and let go of things that are no longer who we were and open to try something new. And in a clothing exchange, you're not buying anything. And so there's less of a resistance to try something that you wouldn't normally wear. So every time I do a clothing exchange, I always try to put on an outfit that I wouldn't normally say is my quote unquote style, just to feel what it feels like to walk in this way and to move in a different way and kind of start to see, is this a new evolution of who I could potentially be, and just try it on, and sometimes even just try a new outfit on for like a couple of weeks and see how that feels. It's a really wonderful exploration of um, yeah, evolving our identities or allowing ourselves to become new or just staying curious about who we're becoming.
Yeah, that idea of self inquiry is important to what we're talking about. There's some people that may, like, when it comes time to make resolutions or to make goals, because that's what everybody does, to kind of check in with yourself and be like, okay, do I want this? What is it that I want to do? And if you're good with where you're at, there's nothing there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of this idea, especially in the Western world, about this constant need to self-improve, and we're constantly this upward trajectory. it's cool to be like good with where you're at least for now. It's like, I have some goals, but this season or this year, I'm just going to chill out. I'm just going to be with myself. And maybe that's an important, that would be a time to, figure out a few things. So before I'm going to set some goals, I'm going to decide if, who I'm trying to be, or who am I actually. That idea of self inquiry is important to this process as well. And be like, okay, so am I cool with like my identity and what I'm doing? If so, fantastic. And if not, why am I unhappy with that? And then you can find a way to get to that place, or shift gears entirely and do something completely new. But really checking in with yourself and finding out what it is that we're trying to do here.
And I love that you brought up, that you don't have to keep changing and growing. It can be fine. It's a very Western idea: bigger, better, more, bigger, better, more, and that we can fall into personal growth traps like that. It reminds me of one of my life-changing stories. I was in college. I did mushrooms for the first time. I was taking psychology classes, and because I was in college, I figured I knew everything, and so I was going to help my dad understand the meaning of life and how he didn't, and so took him to this isolated beach, and I was like, "Dad, what is it that you really want out of life, man?" I get this whole script of how I'm going to get him to this realization. "Dad, what do you really want out of life, man?" And he walks on the beach for like a minute of silence, and then he says, "More of the same." And I was like, "Dude, that's the greatest answer ever. You win. What was I thinking?" So yeah, you're right. If you're doing good, you're doing good.
Yes. And then coming back to also the stages of metamorphosis, what I've witnessed in myself and also working with different people is that we all go through different stages at different times, right? Like sometimes we're rapidly transforming, and sometimes there's these long process where we're like in a deep chrysalis, deep transformation, and it might be years, right? And some people are going through that process like many times in a day, right? And it's okay to accept how each of our process moves at different times, and to be in that place of acceptance. I think that's so beautiful to, yeah, I feel content with how life is. Yeah, I'm happy
Yeah.
with where I am.
Yeah. If that's authentic to you, fantastic. And that, it kind of links to a lot of the things that we've talked about in the previous episodes. That idea of authenticity, like what's real, what's true for you. And if being in this place of like, okay, time to evolve, time to grow feels authentic to you, fantastic. But like Halcyon's saying, like not getting caught up in the trap of continuous growth, continuous evolution. That's gonna happen regardless. So but figuring out finding peace with where you're at, and if you are peaceful with where you're at, is an important part of the whole process.
I love
Yes, and
the
trust.
yeah. Well, I wanted to touch on what you said, Betsy, about these kind of some of these long arcs of growth. And I think that what can be really helpful is um, occasionally I try to, if I find myself doing something that I would not have done 5 years ago, for example, like I not get angry in a conversation, or not lose my temper, not get frustrated by something, really trying to be like, that you grew. Look at that. This is evidence. This is what you were trying to do. This wasn't you 5 years ago, because it's sometimes you don't. It's easy to get discouraged in the moment. And you got to build up this evidence that no, I'm becoming new. It's working. It's just maybe I'm not noticing it because it's happening slowly.
Slow growth. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like if you see a puppy every single day, it's hard to see its growth. But if you see a puppy when it's 6 weeks and then you wait 2 weeks and you don't see it for that time, then you're like, wow, it's grown so much. Yeah. Yeah, it's a process. There was a little while where I was like stuck in a pattern. I was feeling like just uncomfortable myself. And I just kept saying like, I just need to have a breakthrough. I just need that big breakthrough. What is it? Like, I can't see it. I feel it. And then I like actually had this realization that I was having all these micro breakthroughs, and to just be patient with the process. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, right. Okay, little steps, little changes every day. And sure enough, then I started to see a whole new world around me emerging from those like like little tiny shifts in my consciousness. Mhm.
That's one of the nice things about uh, having some years behind you and building a little bit of wisdom is you start to go, okay, I've gone through this enough times. Like my cycle is all my good ideas are behind me. I'm never gonna have anything else good. Like I'm done. And then after some barren creative time, I know what I'm gonna do next. And I've gone through that a dozen times now in significant ways. So now when I'm in I'm no more for me, I'm done. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna let you. I'm not going to spend too much energy. I'll just wait it out and be patient. And it's the negative talk has lost its authority over the years.
That's
Good.
good. That's
Woo!
good. Yeah, it's yeah, and that's one of those things. Just to touch on that as well, is like there's too many examples in this world of people finding their sweet spot like later in life too. So it's easy to be like, oh, look around at everybody else who's 30 years old and be like, wow, so many people have like achieved so much, and here I am, like not doing any, not reaching my goals or whatever. It's like, no, you've got time. So there's too many examples of people, really hitting their sweet spot at the age of 50 or what is that, or finding like the love of their life at like
80.
60 even, or 80. Yeah, and it's like there's the whole world is available to you at all times. So you'll get there, in your own speed. And the idea of like, okay, there's a season. Our lives have seasons, and you'll find yourself going up and down and up and down, but it's not necessarily has to be this upward trajectory. You're just moving forward is all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that there's but just to tie on that is that I don't think our goal is can ever satisfy us doing something. It's always got to be becoming someone. Like the only real success we're ever gonna be satisfied with is becoming your authentic self. And then what that looks like might be that you start a massive company. It might mean that you are powerfully present for your family. It might mean you're a body worker. It might mean all things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have done this dramatic, grand thing in the world, because that's not going to make you happy unless you are your truth.
Unless that's your truth. Yeah. So, but yeah, it always comes back to authenticity. It doesn't really matter whatever we're talking about. If it's true to yourself, then you're good to go.
Why did we start with that? We just wasted an hour. No. Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation as always. Where can people find your gifts in the world, Betsy?
Well, I have some wonderful offerings to support this conversation, actually becoming new and reinventing ourselves. And one of my most treasured passions right now is the Power Affirmation Project. There's a process within a journal and a virtual group that I offer that really helps people to get into deep relationship with what our belief systems are about ourselves in these different areas of life, our beliefs about the world, and really work on unwinding the beliefs that we don't want to carry anymore and create new belief systems using self-inquiry prompts and affirmations and letters to ourselves and gratitude and so much more. Practices to really help to support the growth of who we're becoming. So you can find that on poweraffirmation.com. And then I also work with people in person doing intuitive coaching and body work, energy work, and sound healing here in San Diego and part-time in Asheville, North Carolina.
Beautiful. Thank you. And how about you, Janus?
Cool. I do want to hear I'm sure Betsy's got a good affirmation for us to send us off with. Before that, I do want to share that I've got a company called NuWorld Nutritionals, which is NuWorld Nutritionals, and we have a line of nutritional supplements that are all geared for improving our our cells neurologically, all good things to kind of improve your mindset. So it's a microdose product. Our main product is called MyChromosol Plus, and it's a nutritional supplement that helps you. My partner calls it a spa day for your brain. It just kind of helps you reframe, improves. It's a mood. It's a mood adjuster, we'll call it. It kind of helps you to view things in a more positive, more authentic light. And yeah, it's definitely helped me achieve my goals, get my head right about certain things. I've experienced a lot of progress and growth myself since I've been since founded this company and using the products myself, and getting a lot of great feedback from people as well. So you can find the link in our show notes, and the code SPARKED is good for 10% off about our products as well. So yeah, that's my main offering to the world at the moment, and that feels good to be providing that.
Thank you, Janus. And I want to let people know about the other podcast that I'm doing that I invite you to give a listen to. It is called Gratuitous Boobs. It is available on all the places. It is, I, with my brother and another old friend, we watch old 80s movies that warped us and analyze and laugh at all the things that created some personality issues. So it's kind of relevant to this topic, like going back and realizing, oh my gosh, this seeing these examples of what the way we thought the world was supposed to be, affects us, who we were. And so we have a lot of fun breaking down, and you'd just be surprised. The movies you thought were good are pretty atrocious and cringy. So give a listen, look for, do a search on Gratuitous Boobs. Maybe don't listen to it at work. So
Gotcha.
Betsy, would you close us with a affirmation?
Yes, I would be honored to. There is an affirmation that is very relevant that I've been using pretty much daily for the last few years, and I use it in my groups. And I'm going to share with you a practice on how to use this affirmation, because this is from Paramahansa Yogananda's practice of science of affirmations. When we start speaking the affirmation out loud, and then we get quieter and quieter and quieter until it's just an internal thought. And the affirmation is, I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming. I love who I am. I love who I'm becoming. I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming. I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming. I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming. I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming. Just internally now. And in this affirmation, this is a reminder for us that we can trust that we are in a state of continuous evolution, and to just keep coming back to that place of loving the process of who we are and who we are becoming. Stay sparked.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Halcyon.
Thank you, guys.